So to quickly introduce myself, my name is Hassan. People call me Hassan for short. And I run a YouTube channel called The Spiritual Walks. And I'm not sure if you guys have come across this or not, but in essence, I speak about spirituality, deeper introspection, self-reflection, and in essence, the pursuit into the truth and a higher level of consciousness, in essence. And so the nature of these talks, online at least, they are highly introspective, and it's the same with the talks that I give. And the reason behind that, it links back to what the Prophet once said about self-reflection. He said that an hour of self-reflection is greater than 70 years of worship. So that doesn't mean that we, negate worship and all of that stuff, but no. There is something that one can gain in worship and something that one can gain in self-reflection. And so in this particular talk, you'll see and recognize the nature of self-reflection and what it does within you and how things hopefully unfold within you. So the topic for today is how to experience oneness or how to experience Tawhid. So we can get very hooked up about the definitions and stuff like that. Tawhid, some people say it's monotheism, some people say it's oneness, as mentioned. But in essence, it's something to experience. So from a very young age, we get taught, usul al-din, the Tawhid, Adala, Nubuwa, Imama, Qiyamah, and all of these things. So we get taught these things, right, from a young age, but the way we perceive them and the way we learn about them is we accumulate them in a theoretical sense. So we kind of have to look into that, because the way we perceive things and the way we accumulate things in life, this actually shapes our reality. And as that shapes our reality, it can distort the true oneness or the ultimate truth or God or what is really happening in essence, okay? And it's not something that is, bad or good. We're not here to discuss, whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, what you should do or what you shouldn't do, what is haram or halal. It's really not the nature of this discussion. But to give you like a very simple example is that, the back wall here is all blue and everything. The chairs have some blue on them. So if you are someone who really enjoys and likes the color blue, it would be a complete different feeling sitting in this room compared to someone who's, doesn't enjoy the color of blue or enjoys the color of red a lot more, right? And so, in essence, there is an immediate interpretation of our immediate reality and what happens right now based on our judgments, opinions, our likes, our dislikes, our memory, our past experience, right? And it only makes sense that this is there because if, we are hungry and we need to find some food, then, we have learned that a particular area is better to hunt or find berries or whatever, right? And so it makes sense that there is this adaptability and this development of memories and character and identity that surrounds what we have picked up in our experience, okay? So really the self-reflection that is involved in this talk is to actually look at how we interpret our reality and become more conscious of that and to observe that. Because if we don't observe that, then we abide by the limitations of that intelligence that can only discern things by creating a boundary around it. So it's a bit of a mouthful, but we'll simplify that. So the way we perceive the nature of this reality, because we're trying to understand oneness and Tawhid, right? But the way we perceive this reality is in a dualistic nature, okay? So that means that there is man and woman, there is day and there is night, black, white. And the reason why we know day is because there is something that is night. If we take away night and there is no such thing as the night, then there will only be day, but realistically we won't know what day is. because there isn't the night to contrast the day so that we can know what the day is. Does that make sense? So this is the dualistic nature of reality of life. And so we, from a very young age, we have been conditioned to rely on interpreting life based on dualistic conditions. Okay? And you might say, okay, well, there's this water bottle right here, but how do I know that this is a water bottle? It's not that we know that this is a water bottle because there is the opposite of water bottle to interpret what this is. But another way we interpret reality is based on boundaries. Okay, so this has a limited boundary within space, which is why we can identify it, we can give it a name, we can, give it a label and so on. Okay? So when it comes to oneness, however, okay, for us to try and create a boundary around oneness, all we really get is a concept. All we really get is a theoretical idea. But it's far from what it really is. And then again, if I say oneness, each and every single one of you guys, or if I say Tawhid, each and single one of you guys will have their own unique interpretation, which has come about because of your unique experiences in life and your own unique accumulations and memories in life. Do you see this? Okay? But at the same time, there is also my accumulation and experiences in life. So the way I shape and word what oneness is to you is already a filtration process. And then there is you who will perceive that. That's another filtration process. And this is the world or the realm of theory. Okay, this is the limitations of theory and language and communication. Okay, so for us to truly understand what oneness is, we've got to look and match the attributes of oneness. Because as far as we, most of us live, is we are living in a dualistic way, where this is good, this is bad, and all our interpretations and the way we shape our reality is based on boundaries, based on limitations, based on the negation of certain stuff, based on the existence of certain stuff. So does that make sense to you guys so far? And, let's consider this a discussion, so feel free to speak and say anything you like. So is that all good? Yeah? I'll assume that, you guys are, on par. But I've spoken quite a bit now. Let's make this more interactive and let's actually, get there sort of step by step and let it all unfold. Okay, so we've established so far then that there's theory, and using theory alone is impossible to actually recognize that which has allowed all theories to even exist anyway. Okay, so Tawhid then, or oneness, from your experience, what really is it then? And I think that's going to be a good starting point to sort of find our way to experiencing oneness, hopefully today. Okay, and once it's experienced, it's not something that you can forget because it's part of your experience. So tell me, feel free to say anything you like.
So just like all-encompassing, all-powerful, without having to rely on anything else. Basically being able to do everything out of your own kind of ability.
So it's all-encompassing, all-powerful. Mm-hmm. So what is it that is all-encompassing, all-powerful?
You are referring to Allah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah,
yes. So yes.
You can't redefine that.
Yeah, so oneness, Tawhid, is referred to as God, Allah as well. Okay? So in the Quran, قُلْ هُوَ اللَّهُ أَحَدٌ. Say that God is one. Okay? And so this is, and however, the problem with oneness though is we can say, what Allah is all-knowing, all-powerful and stuff like that, but what really is that? Okay? Because this is still like, it's still theoretical, right? And we can use the expressions of reality to try and see how God is all powerful and stuff like that. But we want to directly experience this. So I'm going to sort of clarify this a bit further by giving you guys an example. Okay? So you have theoretical knowledge and experiential knowledge. Theoretical knowledge is, when I tell you a particular fact or something and you memorize that and you keep that in, this is theoretical knowledge. I could tell you that I was just outside and, I came here by bus, right? This is theoretical knowledge. I didn't actually come here by bus, I came by the train, right? So, there's a lot of room for fallacies in theory alone, okay? There's a lot of room for falsehood in theory alone, okay? Or the potentiality that this isn't the absolute truth, okay? Now, experiential, however, is, if I was to give you this water and, I open the cup and I put some squash in, right? And the color changes, right? I might put some Ribena squash or something and I, ask you, how will this water taste, right? You'll tell me, it's going to taste sweet or like Ribena or something like that, right? But then when I give you this water bottle and you now drink it and you realize actually it tastes very sour, it's not sweet, right? The level of conviction that you now have based on the experiential recognition of what this is of a higher level of conviction compared to theoretical, where, I only told you that this is Ribena, whereas now you've actually tasted it and so it's part of your experience. Do we see this? Okay? So, the way we interpret, the entirety of existence and religion is theoretical based. Well, at least 90% of it is theoretical based. And that's not a bad thing. There's a lot of utility in this because it's very good to memorize, what a dangerous animal looks like so that we do what we need to do to survive. But that's really the best utility about it. It's survival. As the intelligence is the part of our intelligence that allows for survival. So if we are using this to try and discover, oneness, or to experience oneness, to experience God, to experience, the truth, essence of life, then we're kind of, it's not really making sense at this point. It's almost like we're using the wrong tool, right? And you've heard the saying of, a hammer, if you're a hammer, then everything looks like a nail to you, right? Or if you hold a hammer and, you try to build this table, it might make sense. If you want to destroy the table, it might also make sense. But if you're holding a hammer and you want to wash dishes, it might not make sense. So we're using the same part of our intelligence that helps us survive and maneuver around the physicality of existence and so on, to try and decipher that which has even allowed this existence to be in the first place. Okay? So, how does that sound so far?
So what do we possess that is not the same intelligence that allows us to experience that?
And that's what we are going to find out today. That's a very nice question. What do we possess that allows us to recognize this oneness, this truth, right? So, why don't you start? Start by telling us what is it that you possess, right? It might not be something that you actually possess, but what is it that allows you or can allow you to experience oneness? Now, one other thing that I'd like to add to that as you're thinking about this is that in order to know something, we have to somehow be aware of its attributes or know a part of it, okay? So the reason why I know this water is because I've had this experiential knowledge and tasted it, that this is water, okay? So in order for us to know oneness, right, we have to recognize the attribute within ourselves that is one, that is of an indivisible nature as well, so that we can realize and experience oneness. Okay? So as far as, we see ourselves, typically, it's when I ask you, who are you? Or when you ask yourself, who am I? What am I? You might say, my name is, so-and-so. I grew up in this place. I like this and I like that. There's like a sort of formulation of an image that consists of your past experiences and memories, So this is kind of, I want you to see why this is reflective, because it's really kind of an inward kind of observation of what's going on and how you see your reality. So let's kickstart that then. So what part of you then is one, is indivisible?
The soul.
Okay.
I don't know. Well, I'm thinking along the lines of what's having the soul.
Yeah.
And then the whole idea of fitra.
Yeah.
We can recognize between good and bad. We can be greater than the angels, but worse than the animals, kind of thing. And only humans who are given that by Allah.
Yeah. So what you say is fair enough, right? And I'm not saying it's false or true, but it falls within the realm of theory, right? So when you say soul, to me, that's something completely different to what, the sisters might think, what the brother might think. Do you see what I mean here? So this is why, part of my introduction was to understand that there's limitations to theory. It's the same with like the Quran. The Quran is 100% the true word of God, which is fair enough, but when we read it, the way we interpret it, it's not 100% true. Do you see that?
But then don't we have the walking Quran for that?
The
walking Quran, the AhlulBayt.
The AhlulBayt and stuff like that, of course. But the truth is that, whatever you read, the quotes that you read and stuff like that, if it's not experiential, you haven't really hit it, We can memorize these things.
What about experiencing God's love? That in life you can taste almost God's love at some time. Not all the time, it depends. And those are things that you can't really articulate.
So during what times do you experience God's love?
No, I'm saying within instances in your life, sometimes you feel as though you're experiencing that. Maybe that depends on your religiosity and the impact of that, on the frequency of how much you experience that. But those are things that you can't really articulate. So technically, if I told that experience to you, you'd say that's theory, because, but to me it's experiential.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, nice. So we're really grasping now and seeing the limitations of language, right? So this is very nice because, what you might have realized something experientially, but now you're trying to, describe it, and I won't perceive it experiential. It'll be theoretical. So in order for us to perceive and experience the same thing, we have to find out which is consistent in all of us, right? And we'll get more into that, but the sister wants to speak.
Is it to do with consciousness and the ability to self-reflect? Because what makes us different from animals? For example, you said we get most of our knowledge from theoretical knowledge, but for animals it would be experiential instead, right? So I think the fact that we can dissect theoretical knowledge at a higher level of consciousness than animals can is what makes us different.
Yeah, so there's a bit more of a presence of consciousness in humans compared to animals, you're saying, right? And so consciousness, it's a nice word. People say awareness, right? Instead of consciousness, people say soul, right? So like these are all different terms and stuff like that. And I'm not, I'm not asking you guys, to test you in any way, but really it's just to share and put on the table what it is that, is going on within our paradigm in reality, so that we can sort of observe that further and look at it further. Okay? You were going to say something?
No, I was going to say the aql as an intellect.
Yeah, the aql, the intellect, right? So the interesting thing is that, yes, indeed, whatever your answer is, whether it's theoretical, whether it's something you've picked up along the way of your life, when you were maybe 6-7 years old and you were in Arabic school or something like that, and you were being taught these religious concepts, or it may be that you have experienced something like God's love. So, there's a realization that there's something more higher than me, a unifying factor or something like that, okay? And usually some of these experiences actually, the love of God, you might refer to it, whatever you refer to it, these experiences actually also at the same time show you the limitations, once again, of the theoretical aql, or the limiting intellect that we mostly rely on, you know. But to make it less, you know, esoteric or religious or magical, or I don't know what the real term is, to make it more, you know, probable, so that everyone can somehow relate, you know. And we're still speaking theoretically. We're going to get into the, you know, the real stuff in a second. You know, imagine you're on a hike, right? And you know, you are somewhere in the Alps, or I don't know, in Norway. So I, you know, recently went on a trip in Norway. Well, not very recent, maybe like 2 years ago now. I went on a trip in Norway, and you know, it's the first time I see a, you know, such a beautiful country with the mountain ranges and the rivers and nature and stuff like that. And so one thing I noticed is when I would get to like a particular peak and I look around and I look at the mountain range, you know, there's this feeling of awe, right? It's like, wow, right? It's a feeling of awe. It's so grandiose, it's so magnificent, it's so beautiful, right? Now, this feeling of awe, it happens because the mind, you know, for a second, or the aql, or the part of our intellect, kind of just gives up for a second. It's like, look, I don't know how to interpret this for you, but just observe, you know? And so there's this element of awe, and it's somehow related to this element of openness, right? And this, by the way, is also why a lot of people, you know, some people, they're addicted to, you know, adrenaline stuff like skydiving and maybe, you know, going to climb Mount Everest or something like that. It's because it puts them in that, you know, periodic experience of, oh, wow, you know, where the mind is still for a moment. Okay, but really, self-reflection does exactly the same thing. So self-reflection is there to recognize the movements and the activity of the mind, so that, you know, there is that inner stillness that one can experience, and it's with you all the time anyway. Okay, so everyone has a different interpretation. Everyone has a different sort of way of perceiving. So I said something earlier, which is to find that and recognize that which is consistent in all. Only once we recognize that which is consistent in all can we truly speak about the same thing. Okay? So what is that then? Right? So we are trying to experience oneness, right? We have realized that oneness cannot be occupied into one theoretical idea or concept, right? So what is that part of you then that is one or unifying, right? Or consistent in all of life? Wherever you go, it's consistent, right? It's unchanging. And as we are speaking about oneness, you know, it only makes sense that this realization of oneness, it's to be realized regardless of what time period you are in, regardless of how much information you know and how much knowledge you know and have learned, right? So this oneness is out, it's not bound by time. The truth or God is not bound by time. So what quality, you know, within ourselves matches that? Okay? So, you know, and it's you know, like I said, this is an exploration, so, you know, feel free to mention whatever comes up for you.
Is it something to do with identity?
So identity, right? You know, there is an identity, right? Identity is perceived, but identity is not oneness, because it's divisible and it's ever changing and it's bound by time, because at some point that identity didn't exist, and eventually, you know, the identity will leave you. So, you know,
It's not physical.
Sorry?
So it can't be physical, right?
Yeah, so, you know, when you say it can't be physical, what is physical? What do you mean by that?
If it's supposed to be timeless, this aspect of that, then it can't be physical.
Yeah, so you're using, you know, a bit of physics to
So,
derive that, right?
yeah, well,
Which is fair enough, but we can actually, you know, experience this. Okay? So what is that part of you then that is indivisible? It's not bound by time. it's all encompassing, right? And actually it's all knowing as well. Okay? What is that part of you? And, I want you to just try and have a look and observe this for a moment, because then we can get into some questions to really recognize that. And I know you need to go soon, which would be a shame.
Find out what this is first.
Okay, good. That means whatever you need to go to is not as important. Huh? So. Assalamu alaikum. So I know you've just got in here, so I'm going to tell you what part of you is indivisible, is all-knowing, is not bound by time, right, and is consistent. It's unchanging.
Is this something to do with when Allah created us, He breathed into us? So, and our goal on this earth is... But I don't know if that's theoretical again, according to your...
It's something you've learned along the line, isn't it? Because look, this is an Islamic society. It's AhlulBayt Society. So if, I'm speaking in Islamic terms. If I'm sitting in a Christian society, I can speak in Christian terms, and they will have different terminology and stuff like that, right? But we want to experience this now, okay? Regardless of what you know and don't know and what you've learned, right? I know it sounds like a bit of a riddle, but really it's so simple that we overlook it. Sister's a bit confused.
Because all those things you described make me think of God.
Yes. So, okay, that's fair enough. So everything I'm describing makes you think of God.
Those characteristics.
But in essence, we're trying to know God, right? We're trying to experience God. In order to know God, we have to find the attributes of God within ourselves, so that we may realize and recognize God. Do you see how that makes sense? Right? Because like I said earlier, the way we perceive reality is in a dualistic form. Do you see? Right? And that's why the Quran and Islam emphasizes lam yalid wa lam yulad. There's all these elements that God has no partner, does not beget, nor is begotten, right? So there's this emphasis so that because the mind loves to create ideas and personify and create an identity or a character around things. So the reason why there's these interpretations and there's this emphasis on what God is to negate your desire to try and put God in a box or an idea. But nevertheless, we kind of do that anyway, right? When we pray to God, we have an idea maybe of God or a concept. We might link it to a particular feeling or something. Everyone has something unique of what they perceive God to be. So how do we make that consistent, and how do we unify that? So I'm going to, start by asking a few questions then, so that we can hopefully unfold this and experience this, okay? So I'm going to ask you, what's your name, bro? Amar. So Amar, I'm going to ask you, it's a very simple question, and and these questions aren't to test you in any way. There's no right or wrong. These questions are simply, for you to just discover. It's an inquiry. We ask these questions because they direct our focus somewhere so that it hopefully becomes recognized, okay? So, Ammar, my question to you then is, are you aware?
It's a very open-ended question.
Yes. And it's a yes or no question, by the way.
How can you answer yes or no to that? Because that question is
okay, answer me however you like.
as in, aware to what?
Okay, so there has to be an object to be aware of.
Not always.
Not always. So are you aware or not then?
I'd have to say yes. But
Good.
clearly, by the fact that I can't answer your question, no.
No, so how about this? Are you conscious? Do you like that word better?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So how do you verify then that you are aware or that you are conscious? How do you verify this?
We're not talking conscious in the scientific terms, are we?
You know, feel free to speak. You know, if it's scientific or not, feel free to.
No, as in, aware of what? Aware of God, aware of what's happening in the
Anything.
world.
Aware of just being.
And our awareness of God is obviously.
No, before anything, right? There's a fundamentality. There's this fundamental knowing. Right now, right? There's an underlying knowing that this is taking place.
I'm aware of my immediate surroundings. But
Yeah.
I'm not aware of what's happening outside this building, for example.
That's fair enough. But whether you are aware of what's outside the building or not, there is awareness. Yes?
Yeah.
Right? So the answer is yes, right? So you are aware. So the way you verify that then, you're saying, you know, I'm looking at my immediate surroundings, right? And because of my immediate surroundings, what my senses are picking up, there is the knowing or the awareness of what is happening right now. Okay? So but what's interesting about this question though is because when I ask you, are you aware? There is this just moment, right, before even the answer arises to try and verify. Okay? And what is it that does the verification? Okay? Regardless of your surroundings, you could be sitting here, you could be inside a volcano, you could be sitting in a garden, you could be, you know, anywhere, right? There is that which verifies that this is taking place. What is that?
What verifies the fact that you're aware?
Mm.
It's in your brain.
Is it by comparing to when you're in a state of unconsciousness or unawareness?
But if there is unawareness or unconsciousness, then how is there anything to verify, right? Do you see what I mean? So if there is no consciousness or there is no awareness, right? When you are aware, then you know you wouldn't know that there was no awareness, right? Unless you think of sleep, right? Or when someone faints or something, right? But I'll tell you something. Right now, as you are sat here, right? And look at the subtlety of this. Right now, as you are sat here, you're breathing, your heart's beating, you are experiencing something, right? You're experiencing this random guy who's just speaking words, right? And these words are somehow, it's actually just noise, and somehow in your brain, you're understanding these words, right? This is an experience that is taking place. You could be, somewhere at home, chilling, watching Netflix or whatever, right? That experience could be more or less desirable, but it's still just an experience. You could be taking part somewhere else, which is also another experience. You could be doing something wrong, or you could be doing something right, but at the end of the day, it's also an experience. Now, these experiences, regardless of how we feel about them, regardless of how we agree or disagree with them, these experiences are all known. There is that which experiences. Okay? There is that which knows. Regardless of the thoughts that you are having, regardless of your experiences in life, there is that which knows. It's an underlying knowing. The moment you try to, grasp it, you're creating just another thought or a concept, which is also known, right? Because the bottom line is you are not your thoughts, and you are not any concept or idea. Because if you are your thoughts or a concept or an idea, then who is it that is knowing these concepts and ideas? Who is it that is listening to these thoughts? Okay? Somewhere along the line, from birth till now, there's been maybe a a sudden switch or a, gradual switch into thinking that you are an image or a concept of who you are. But really you are that which perceives all concepts. Does that make sense?
Does any of this make sense?
Huh?
Does any of this make sense?
Does it not make sense?
No, it does, but it's just new.
It's new.
Yeah. What to think of.
Is it new though? But really,
Supposedly it's supposed to be innate.
huh? Yeah, it's happening. It's been happening all the time anyway, right? This underlying knowing.
So we're waking up now.
Maybe, right? You could say that it's recognizing it, right? So, but why? Why is there utility in recognizing this? And how is this linked to oneness, right? Like I don't want to, we're gonna get into this in a bit, and I think it's almost time to perhaps wrap up. But before we get on to further development, I want to just ask a few questions about that which is knowing, so that we can really rest in that knowing, so that we identify as this knowing rather than identifying with the thoughts and ideas of what we think we know. Okay? So my next question then is that which knows, regardless of the thoughts, ideas, or concepts, regardless of the experience, you could be experiencing anything, there is that which is knowing of that experience. That which knows, right? Can it stop knowing? In fact, has it ever stopped knowing?
It can be distracted, but not stopped.
Can it be distracted? So let's imagine this, right? Let's say you are sat here and I'm talking about, something extremely important or whatever, and you are daydreaming, okay? You are imagining yourself in a different country on a holiday that you really wanted to go to. As you are daydreaming, would you say that you are distracted at this point from the talk? Yeah. So you're distracted, you're daydreaming, you are somewhere else now. That which knows that there is a daydream and then there is a talk. What changes really is the content of the experience. All that changes is the experience.
The direction of focus.
Yeah, the direction of focus, if you like, The direction of focus changes, but there is that which knows whatever there is to be focused on. Do you see that? Right? So then, does it change then, that which knows? Does it ever change? Has it ever changed before? You're nodding your head, no? It doesn't, huh? Try to change it. Or try to stop it. Try to stop this knowing of this moment, of this experience. Try to stop it. Can you stop it? You can't, huh? You can't stop it, can you? Huh? So, can you, is there something that it doesn't know? Right? Is there anything that it doesn't know? Or can you create something, an idea or a concept outside of it? This, we can call this knowing awareness if you like. Can you perceive anything that is outside of awareness? Is that possible?
Not the awareness given to us.
Okay. So you're saying that there is an awareness giving to us, right?
So there's a maximum awareness that we can reach, right?
Okay. So there's a maximum, right? And I'm assuming there might be a minimum, so there's different levels, right? So how are we going to go about this? So these there are no levels of awareness. Okay? Let's assume that you are in the middle of prayer and you feel extremely close to God, right? or you are, taking part of a sin and you feel really far away from God. Right? What is the consistency between these two experiences?
The knowing.
The knowing, right? The knowing is consistent between these experiences. Whether you're doing something bad or good, or whether you're doing something that, makes you feel elevated, right? Or something that makes you feel miserable and depressed, there is an underlying knowing. That is consistent no matter what the content of the experience is. Do we see this consistency? Right? So this, really it's about looking into the nature of this knowing then. Let's look into the nature of it. It's very difficult to put it in a box or to give it to someone or to take it from someone, but it's there. And it's self-evident. The way you know that there is awareness is self-evident. That nothing needs to be there for awareness to know awareness. Okay? It's a self-knowing thing. It's a self-evident thing. Right? So, another question then is, what happens then when someone faints, let's just say, or when someone goes to sleep? How does the knowing change? This underlying knowing.
You've entered a different realm in that sense.
So you've entered a different realm of sleep, right? Or maybe dreaming and stuff, right? So how does the knowing element change? Whether you are in this waking state or the sleep.
It stays consistent.
It's consistent, yeah. It's consistent, it doesn't change, right? Are you recognizing this? Yeah? So there's an underlying knowing, regardless of anything that's taking place. There is a knowing of what's happening. Right? So where is this knowing located then? That which knows is located in the brain. How is it located in the brain? Because if we open up someone's brain, we won't find it there, will we? Because if you open someone's brain, there's still a knowing that someone's brain is open now.
I think it's beyond the physical realm.
Okay. Okay, beyond the physical realm. Right. Okay. Where is it really located though? Because it's self-evident. We know that the knowing is there. So where is it really located then? Don't be shy to speak, Okay, is there a place where it's not located?
Outside your knowing.
But we've established that there cannot be something outside of the knowing. Assalamu alaikum.
Outside your realm
Outside of the realm.
that you're in.
But, okay. So there's a realm now, right? So you were saying that there is a limitation or a boundary to this particular realm, right? So where is this boundary? Where do you define where this realm stops?
It has to be somewhere that others don't have access to it.
It has to be somewhere where others don't have access to it. Okay.
Because you can't show your full reality to someone else.
You can't share your full reality to someone else. Okay. When you say others, right? Regardless of what these others are, could be the person sitting next to you, could be a person at home, whoever these others are. there is a knowing of this concept of others, regardless, right? And then there is a knowing of whatever the content of your experience is. Okay? Now there seems to be a so the way it's actually happening, it's not that, each one of you guys has their own sort of pocket of knowing or their own pocket of consciousness. Really, it's just one consciousness, but then there is different characters that are being experienced in this consciousness. But can you see that though? Or is it, coming to you as a theory or as an idea?
Ideas and theories interchangeable.
Yeah. Ideas, theories are the same thing. Okay, so I will let's I think this, there's someone, some of you guys are grasping a bit of it, right? Or like recognizing it. But then some of you guys are sort of struggling a bit because there's the realm of thought and opinions that also comes into it, right? And it requires time, because every time we recognize that there is this knowing, as soon as we have an idea or a thought about it, there may be the tendency that we, lean towards and agree with the thought of what this consciousness is or this knowing element, right? So it may take a bit of back and forth to really recognize this. Okay? So let's sort of reestablish that once again. So, I am this person, my name is, Hassan, and I have experienced different things in my life. From a young age, I moved from one country to another. And in these experiences in my life, I have formulated different likes, different dislikes, different opinions, different judgments, right? But the reason why I can describe this to you is because there is that which is knowing of these experiences. There is that which knows that there is these experiences taking place. Now, when I sleep, right, there is a dream that is taking place, but there is a knowing that this is there is a dream, right? And then there's the when I wake up again, there is no discontinuation in the knowing. There can be a discontinuation in the content of experience. Okay? So let's suppose someone, faints. Someone, falls to the ground and they faint for, maybe 12, 15 seconds. And then, what we may perceive, right, is that this person, faints. After 15 seconds, they wake up again. And they look around like, hey, what's happening, right? However, what they may perceive is that as soon as they faint, they're awake again. So there is no discontinuity in experience. There's no discontinuity in consciousness, in the knowing. However, there is a discontinuity in the experience. Okay? Does that make sense? So another thing that you could say is that what that means is that this knowing is not bound by time. This underlying knowing is not bound by time. If you were sat, watching your favorite TV show, time flies by really quickly. But if you are sat, waiting for your dentist or something, and you're extremely bored, time feels slower as well. So there's this interchangeability of, the concept of time and how that is experienced as well. But what remains consistent in that? It's the underlying knowing.
So our perceptions are different, but the knowing is consistent.
Yeah. And, I'm not just saying this so that you learn this, right? Verify it now, right? Verify this in your immediate experience. That which knows, regardless of the experience. You could be sat here, you could be sat at home, and, really, I invite you to really observe the nature of experience and how this is known. And what is it that knows this experience? So tell me about, the qualities of this knowing. Talk to me about it. You can say anything you like.
It's timeless.
It's timeless. Why? How do you verify that it's timeless?
I'm struggling
Yeah?
here.
So it's timeless. So in essence, right? The way we want to know if this underlying knowing is timeless, or if we want to explore the nature of this underlying knowing, right? When did it start? Can you answer that? Can you answer?
Our knowing.
The-
Each person's knowing.
Just the knowing. Look,
Just the knowing itself.
so I know that, there's the tendency to say that there's your knowing, my knowing, right? That's fair enough, right? But one thing that's unique is that there is your experience and my experience. That's fair enough, right? But then there is that which knows my experience, and then there's that which knows your experience, regardless of what the content of the experience is. Okay? And so we are looking into the nature of this knowing, right? We don't know yet what this knowing is. We are sort of exploring and inquiring about it. And so, you say that it's timeless. So let's verify that, because I can tell you, a bunch of really cool stories, and you can memorize these stories if you want, But let's actually talk about something that is within our experience immediately, that is here now, right? So, you're saying that this knowing is timeless, but when did it start? Right? When will it end?
The fact that it's timeless showed there was no start.
There was no start. Right? There's really no start. There was always an underlying knowing, right? And then eventually some formulation of conception was taking place, some formulation of identity was taking place, right? I like this and I like that, and this is my favorite sport and this is my favorite food. All of these things, these experiences have been accumulated to create this picture that is now known, right? Because if you were that who you think you are, right? So what was it? Remind me of your name. Ali. So if you say that I am Ali and I like this and I am studying, was it journalism? And I'm doing this and I'm doing that, right? These are things that you have picked up over time, right? But there is that which is knowing of what is being picked up over time. Now, Ali is inconsistent because there is a development of Ali and the transformation, right? But that which knows Ali, which is knowing, is consistent. There is no development of that, right? So fundamentally, if you look at this, when you were 5 years old, or when you look at this now, it's really just you, right? There might be a difference in experience, a difference in memories accumulated, in a transformation in different beliefs. What you believe in today, you might not believe in tomorrow, or you didn't believe in yesterday, right? There's always a change in development of things, in experience. But there is that which knows this experience. So what we are trying to do right now is we are trying to recognize that which knows. We are trying to recognize that which is knowing, regardless of the contents of the experience. And so when we ask the question and we inquire into the nature of this knowing, right, we are just trying to recognize it more, in a way. And really, there's nothing that is learned here. All there is a recognition of, something that is taking place regardless of the contents of experience. You might strongly agree with something, you might strongly disagree with something, it doesn't matter. There is that which is knowing of these agreements and disagreements. So when we look at the nature of this knowing then, when we say where is it located, right? Does it have a location? It doesn't really have one location. There is no location to it, right? I was having this similar talk in Manchester, and I asked this exact same question. Where is this knowing located? Where is this awareness located? And one of the members that was there said, it's everywhere, but it's nowhere at the same time. And I couldn't think of a better answer than that. It's everywhere, but it's nowhere at the same time. And it's so beautiful that he said that, because in Imam Ali's sermon, where he was asked by one of his companions, and I'm paraphrasing here, Oh Ali, do you see God? He said, how can I worship that which I do not see? Right? And then he goes on and speaks, and then he says, هو في الأشياء كلها غير ملامس. God is in everything, but without being in the direct contact of things, which is kind of also the same thing. It's everywhere, but nowhere at the same time. Because as soon as you can confine God or anything that is true, absolute truth, into a box, it doesn't become that truth anymore. It becomes an idea or a concept. So the reason why we are able to perceive this dualistic nature of life, the reason why we can know that there is a man and a woman, day and night, black and white, the reason why we can know these things is because there is this oneness within us, this knowing that is one. It's indivisible, right? This is why we can know that which is divisible.
How can you prove oneness or knowing before you conceptualized it? So how would you be able to prove that you had it before you conceptualized it?
Okay, so anything that you conceptualize, could you say that it's one? You could say that it's one. Okay, so we'll take a few steps back, right? So I'm telling you that this is a water bottle, okay? What you perceive as this water bottle, you create a concept of this water bottle, essentially, and you create a concept, and everyone sitting here will create a concept of this bottle, right? Is everyone's concept exactly the same? It's going to be somewhat different. Because the way we formulate this concept, or the way we interpret what this bottle is based on the experiences that we have accumulated over our life, right? Based on the unique experiences that we have accumulated, okay? So we can see immediately that there's an inconsistency in the concepts. So the concept itself of this bottle, then, it's not absolutely true. The one that you hold is not absolutely true. The one I hold is not absolutely true. No one who holds a particular concept of anything is going to be absolutely true in that sense. But what we are interested in is that which is knowing that there is a concept of the bottle to begin with. Right? So that's what we're trying to sort of inquire and explore. That which is knowing, regardless of what the concept is being formulated. And so that which knows, right, all concepts, whatever concept that comes up, it is known. That which knows, is it divisible? It's not divisible, huh? So it's one. Right? It's not of a dualistic nature. And one way to logically, I guess, prove it is that the reason why we know duality, right? In Arabic, it's the ithnatain, The reason why we know this is because of wahdat al-wujud, because of the non-duality, which is this underlying knowing. Regardless of your experience and regardless of what you pick up, there is that which knows. It's indivisible. When we ask where is it, there is no location for it. It's nowhere, but it's also everywhere at the same time. Is it bound by time? Right? Everyone, I believe, might have a different perception of time. It's very relative. If you're really enjoying this talk, it might feel like we've been talking for 5 minutes. I've really been enjoying this. I feel like we've been talking for like 15 minutes maybe. Not so long. But for someone who's been extremely bored and may not enjoy this, they might feel like it's been 3 years that this talk has been taken. Right? Do you see this? So there is no boundary to time of that which knows, because whether this talk is boring or very fun, there is the underlying knowing. Okay? So, in the beginning or earlier, I said that in order for us to know oneness or to experience oneness or to experience Tawhid, right? This oneness, we have to find the attributes within ourselves that is one. In order for us to experience the ultimate truth, the indivisible, the non-dual, the one, right? We have to recognize the attribute within ourselves that is also indivisible, one. And so on. Right? So then you can, hopefully the experience for you unfolds in a way where you see that all there is this oneness. And everything else is just a concept, an idea. You might really believe in an idea. You might identify with an idea and you become like this idea. But at the end of the day, it's still an idea that is just perceived or is known. Do you see? So let's say, for instance, I have this idea where I have this idea or this judgment, right, that crosses my mind. Just like how we every day there's like thousands of thoughts that cross our minds. One particular thought crosses my mind and it says, that I dislike black people, let's just say. I take this idea and I identify with it. I'm going to live by that idea. I'm going to act by that idea. Do you see? Right? But we are able to recognize that this idea is futile and we can deal with it and let it go because we have recognized that there is that which knows that there is an idea to begin with. Whereas if we thought that we are our ideas and we are our thoughts, right, we would be immediately entangled and we would think this is the reality. The thought has crossed the mind, but this is the reality now. This is why they say that, racism is taught, Little kids, right, if something happened in a room and there's like loads of adults, you don't ask the adults what happened in the room, you ask the kids. Because the kids are more likely to be honest. Because kids, they're yet to learn, at a certain age, eventually they learn how to lie. Right? They don't know how to lie. Eventually they learn how to lie. Okay? And so in order for us to experience oneness, we have to recognize the oneness within ourselves, the attributes that is indivisible and one within ourselves, so that we may experience the oneness of all. So I think I've mentioned everything so far. I believe that, this is a series. I'll be going over a lot of these introductions. And in essence, what we've been doing, we've been laying the groundwork. It's highly introspective. We are really, silent and still trying to really figure out what's happening. And the next talk, I believe, will be of a similar nature. Right? So just because people haven't seen, haven't been in this one, doesn't mean that in the next one they'll be missing something out. We're going through the same introductions and so on. So I guess at this point, it would be nice to, actually, I'll share, one particular ayah from the Quran that kind of highlights a bit of what we're talking about here. So if we recognize the attributes of oneness within ourselves, we can recognize all of oneness, right? We can recognize oneness, we can recognize God, right? And it's linked to that underlying knowing, right? If we identify with that underlying knowing, can we truly know God, right? So Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَلِلَّهِ الْمَشْرِقِ وَالْمَغْرِبِ فَأَيْنَمَا تَوَلَّوْا فَثُمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَسِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. So for God is the east to the west, and wherever you turn, you find God's face. And God is all-encompassing and all-knowing. So this is what religion is all about. Religion is there for us to experience, not just learn and say, okay, yep, I'm a Muslim and this. No, we are here to experience this. So I think I'll finish speaking, but I'd like to receive any questions or anything that you guys have in mind. Feel free to ask anything you guys might have. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.